Welcome to Business Mastery with Dawn Kennedy, your quick under 45-minute dose of expert insights and strategies to make a positive impact on your business and life. Let's get started. Hello, and welcome to this episode of the Business Mastery Podcast. I am so excited to bring back on somebody who had an amazing episode when we were still called the Profit Accelerator Podcast back in 2022, episode 72 on generating referrals without asking. And we're bringing back Stacy. She's got new books, new topic, and let's just go. I'm so excited to have you back.
Yeah,
So,
thanks,
thank
Dawn.
you
I'm
for
excited to be back.
Yeah, this time on video. So if you go back and you look at the other one, you're only going to get to hear, but now they can see and hear, and that's exciting. So can you tell everyone who you are and who you serve?
Yeah, I think it's exciting for everyone else to be able to watch the videos, but it means that you and I have to get ready.
Right.
That's
Yeah,
how that was the other part. Yes. Yeah, so you know what? I'm still talking about referrals without asking because there is so much more to it that people do not understand. I always tell my clients referrals live in an ecosystem within your business. It is not referrals are a nail and the only solution or the only tool you need is a hammer. That there are so many places where referrals are hiding, or you can uncover them and you can help start generating them. So, like you mentioned, I do have my second book out. It actually falls on a different part of the ecosystem within referrals. But I've been doing my business now for almost 13 years, teaching small business owners how to generate referrals without asking, without manipulating, without incentivizing, and not feeling like you have to be gimmicky, promotional, or network all the time. That you actually can build a referral strategy for your business that's based on the science behind referrals. And from that, and the research that I have done, you can actually put in place in your business a proven roadmap to generate referrals in a way that's actually going to feel good and work.
I love that. So the first book was a different part of the ecosystem, but I mean, things must have evolved relationally between businesses and consumers and B2B sales in the last 3 years too, right? Like, if there's been some change in relationships, or is it just another ecosystem you leaned into just to explain it deeper? But how did you come up with the second topic on this
Yeah,
very important topic?
Yeah. So, what's interesting about referrals is that, people talk about the difference between like the changing nature of like whether it's the online marketing world or it is the social media world, or if it's the algorithms changing and there's constant updates, constant changing, SEO is changing, AI is like changing everything. Like there's all these changes happening. And I happen to operate in a space where referrals are based on relationships. And so that's evergreen. And there are just parts of a relationship that don't actually ever change. What people underestimate when it comes to referrals is the fact that, sometimes it's the idea of like just being a good human, right? It's like today's age, it's like we just need to be reminded of that more, I think, than we needed to be reminded of it maybe 10 years ago. But when you look at my two books, so the way I always like for folks to think about referrals is when people are like, hey, I need more referrals. I'm like, okay, wait, let's start with who you should be getting referrals from. And there's actually three groups. And these are what we call the three foundational plans that I think every business should have in place. And so the first one is the people who already refer you.
Mhm.
Or how are you taking care of them, right? And using the right language and the right outreach to get more referrals from them. And that's what my first book, Generating Business Referrals Without Asking, is based on. And that's what we mostly talked about when I was on the first episode with you. But there's a second group of who you should be getting referrals from, and that is within the client experience. And so within the client experience, you should be building out a referable client experience that understands referral hot zones and right moments and right people so that you can actually bridge the gap from doing great work to actually receiving referrals while a client is in the client experience with you. And so that's what my second book, The Referable Client Experience, is about, because that's the second group of folks that you could cultivate referrals from. Now, some people may be in industries like, let's say, personal injury or defense attorney, and they may not have a total sole focus on the client experience piece. But even my clients that are in those in those companies, they still do, but it looks a little different. And then the third group that you should be focused on generating referrals from is what we call potential referral sources. Those are people that you have identified by name, could be clients, but also they're probably centers of influence, right? People who come across your ideal client with some level of regularity and know what you do. So they actually know who to refer to you. But that's a third group, right? Of people that they've never referred to you. They maybe never even thought of referring to you. And then how do you cultivate them to a place where they want to refer to you? And they'll do it thinking it's their idea. So those are the three groups that I always tell business owners, you've got to have a plan in place to get more referrals from your existing referral sources, to make sure you are leveraging your client experience and being referable and bridging the gap to referrals, because doing great work is not just going to give you a bunch of referrals. I wish it were true, but it's not. And then you need to have a plan in place for how you identify people you want to refer you and then cultivate them, right? Cultivate those folks in a way that they will ultimately refer you. And we do all of that without asking, without incentivizing, without being gimmicky and promotional, and without feeling like all we do is network. So we're never forgotten. So those are the three basic plans. I have two books out. So they're based on two of those three plans. If I write a third book, it'll be on that last group, the potential referral sources. But it's too hard to talk about writing another book when you've just finished one.
Right. Right. No, I get that 100%. So let's just make sure we're really kind of clean and clear for anybody listening. If this is the first time you've heard Stacy because you didn't follow me in 2022, you're forgiven. And we're grateful for you to be here now, right? Um, let's just talk about what we mean by referral, because it might actually mean different things to different people depending on the business that they're in. So it's like, oh, word of mouth, go try this boutique. And then they go try to the boutique. Is that the same type of referral you're talking about that needs to be cultivated? Or is there something else we need to consider when we use the word referral?
Yeah, so I'm very, very clear on how we define what a referral is, and that we understand that a referral is different from word of mouth buzz. It is different from an introduction, and it is different from a warm lead. So, and those are four different types of ways that prospects can show up. But you need to be really clear on which you're receiving, because that teaches you and tells you like how to ultimately respond. And that's very, very important. So, with a referral, what we're looking at is the two part of that definition is one, you're being personally connected by someone else, which we call the referral source. Some people call them referral partners, but the referral source knows someone who has a problem and they're going to personally connect them to you. The second part of that definition is the prospect knows they are the prospect. They know they have a problem. That's why they're willing to be referred to you. That's why they're willing to have a conversation with you. And they bring along that trust they have in the referral source and it's transferred to you. Very different from word of mouth buzz when someone's like, hey, I talked to Dawn. She's amazing. She can solve all your problems. You should definitely give her a call. And then they come and they tell you, Dawn, I gave someone your name and number. They're going to follow up. Well, it feels like a referral. It's really close to being a referral, but it's missing that connection piece that puts you in the driver's seat of knowing who you're following up with and the circumstance under which you're following up. So, I teach my clients that, word of mouth buzz and introductions and warm leads aren't bad necessarily, but you need to know what's arriving. You need to know why it's not a referral. And then you need to understand how to flip that into a referral as well. So it is that definition is very important. Personal connection and the need identified in the prospect as well.
Yeah, that's critical to separate out so that we're being very clear. But also, I do think a lot of us, and me included, would say, well, if somebody makes an introduction and they get on a call or they want to find out more, but even if it didn't lead to business, let's just say for whatever reason, because they didn't have that problem, I think that is something that we would consider a referral anyway. It's like, oh, we didn't do business together. Um, because, again, it's like, "Oh, I passed over your name and number." I do think we consider those to be referrals, and that missing piece about the awareness of the problem that could be solved on the other end. So, that requires, I think, first of all, very, very clear understanding of what it is that you do. Because 'cause I'm wondering also on the referral side, if you were to ask, let's go back to your attorney example. I'm a defense attorney, or I'm a this attorney, or I'm a that attorney. It's like, oh, that's nice. And people generally kind of know what that is, right? But how many times have you started even for the business owners? Like, so what do you do? What are you going to be referred to do? How are people able to answer that? Or is it even clear when they get started?
Yeah, I mean, most folks that I work with, I mean, I work with certain industries and I work with folks at a certain stage in business. They know how to answer that question. Sometimes if they're newer in business or if they're doing something that's maybe like newer on the cutting edge. So like I have a couple of folks that I'm working with that are really like, and it's kind of like growing now in terms of women hitting a certain age and a certain life stage and having actual working with dietitians or nutritionists or folks that are helping them as they make those hormonal changes that are happening in their lives. There's actually like coaches. It's like this boutique industry that's kind of like bubbled up what feels like overnight. It probably isn't. And so for them, sometimes there's a little bit like, do you know how to answer the question of like the what you do? Most of the clients I work with, they know how to answer that question. And so when they're in networking opportunities or when they're in conversations with folks, they'll be able to answer that question. But most folks don't ever ask that question because they're thinking in their heads, now let me think how I can refer you now that I know what you do, right? I mean, what we're thinking about, let's be honest, is ourselves and all the 50,000 things we have on our to do list, personal and professional, right? For our business and for our personal lives. And so I always tell folks like people do need to know what you do and you do need to be able to answer the question. And when someone says, how can I help you? I want you to be able to answer the question. But what I know the science says that people don't want to be told how to help you before they've asked you if they can. And 9 times out of 10, they're not gonna actually ask you how they can help you or actually stick with it because they're just gonna get busy when they get back to their lives, and so the system that we put in place to generate referrals from folks, it has to look different. It's focused on some science pieces of understanding, like, behavioral economics and what's going on in the brain of the referral source, and, of course, the psychology of trust, but also the dynamics, the social networks, like, it pulls on a number of places within the science and a research, type of framework for how referrals work, but I want to go back to what you said about introductions because here's the thing word of mouth buzz, what it's missing to be a referral is there's no connection.
Mhm.
With an introduction, what it's missing to be a referral is there's no need identified when the introduction is made. You're being connected, right? But there's no need identified. So in that moment, you don't know, am I the prospect? Are they the prospect? Am I going to get on this call and they're going to pitch me? Or am I supposed to be prepared to pitch them? Because it's just an introduction. And there's nothing wrong with introductions for the sake of being an introduction. But what I tell my clients is sometimes there's referrals hiding in there and you don't know it. And so you show up for just like, hey, let's get to know each other. But in fact, this person actually had some curiosity and you don't know it, you don't know that there's a need identified. Maybe you'll uncover it in that 30-minute Zoom call. Maybe you won't. And so those are why we want to be really clear on what the terms are and what's missing so we know how to respond.
Right. So over the last couple of years, as we've watched again the more AI and the marketing, and everyone has been talking about, well, if you're going to do your marketing, you go out there and you tell them what the pain points are, right? Like you point and you press and you let them know, and you tell them this is the problem I solve. This is the problem I solve. Is that always translatable to referrals, where the marketing says I solve these problems, but from what I'm hearing is there's this human piece of it that maybe it's gonna look a little different if somebody actually warm refers you for a need.
Yet that's because referrals and marketing are separate. They're like separate legs of the stool in terms of your business development. So if you think about your sales strategy or your business development strategy, you're probably doing things that we would call our prospecting activities in nature, right? Maybe you're hopefully you're not cold calling, but people still do that in this day and age. So maybe you're cold calling or cold emailing or maybe you're spamming people on LinkedIn, right? Maybe
I
you
wasn't
are
gonna bring it up, I'm glad you did.
yeah, maybe you're doing 7 million cups of coffee. Maybe you're joining a bunch of networking groups and leads groups, and you're attending association meetings. So there's things that you're doing that are prospecting in nature. And then there's probably things that you are doing that are marketing in nature, your website, social media. Maybe you run ads, right? Maybe you sponsor events. And so there's activities that you're doing that are prospecting and marketing. And what people try to do is they try to take referrals and they try to fit them as a part of marketing and they call it referral marketing, which is not a thing. Or they try to take referrals and they put it into into prospecting. And that's where you get the advice. If someone believes referrals fit in prospecting, that's when they tell you you got to get to the pain as fast as possible. So you've got to ask for the referrals or incentivize, offer to pay for those referrals, right? Or go to networking events all the time so you can never be forgotten. The advice and the tactics for how to get referrals follows how the expert believes where referrals ultimately fit. And so if the person you're talking to believes that referrals are part of prospecting, they will tell you to do things that will get you, hopefully, in the world of prospecting, as quickly as possible to the prospect. Here's the issue though. Prospecting is built, the messaging of it, the activities of it, the what you do, your mentality that you take going into prospecting is because your goal is to show up to those 7 million cups of coffee and hope that you're talking to a prospect.
Right.
Hope that you're talking to somebody who has pain and wants to give you money to solve it. It's
Mm.
the same thing with marketing, right? When you do marketing, you're putting out the ads, right? You're putting out that you're giving that presentation, maybe you're doing a speaking engagement. And so in the marketing realm, right, you're still pushing out messaging that's trying to get the attention of the prospect. So you're talking about pain, you're talking about how you can solve it, you're talking about what's happening because you're not solving the problem. All the messaging of prospecting and marketing is focused on getting the prospect's attention. And this is why referrals don't fit in prospecting and marketing. They are the third leg to your overall sales strategy. The third leg, a separate leg, is referrals because the end user, so to speak, right? If the prospect is the end user of prospecting and marketing, the end user of your referral strategy are referral sources.
Mhm.
The people you're maintaining a relationship with who stand between you and the prospect. So all the messaging is different. You're not selling, you're not trying to find pain, right? You're trying to make it to the fact that that referral source remembers you, right? To actually ultimately be able to refer you to the person who has the pain. So your prospecting and your marketing are very important. They don't ever go away, but you have to bring referrals out of them and you have to look at them separately and create plans in place that allow you to cultivate the relationship with the end user, which are referral sources, the people who know who the prospects are that they will be able to refer to you. So your whole dynamic, the messaging, the mentality, everything changes when you look at referrals separate from prospecting and marketing.
I think that's very, very important. I'm really glad that you separated that out. So you made a statement earlier about there's a question that happens on the referral side that maybe isn't a question that gets asked, as you just said in marketing or prospecting, that there has to be a question developed. Can we dig a little bit into where that question starts to develop and why referrals are so different?
Yeah, so I mean, I think from the perspective of the relationship that you're building with your referral sources, right? The question is never, what do you do? And who can I refer to you?
Mhm.
The question actually starts at this, do I like you?
Mm.
Right? It's much and that's not a question they're gonna ask you, like, "I wonder if I like you, Dawn." Like, no one's verbally going to be asking that question, right? They're thinking about it though, right? They're assessing it because you need 2 things for referrals to happen. You need desire and opportunity and you only control one. And the one that you control is desire, which means that when you have someone who has a problem with referrals, right, the relationship that we have is there so that you would only think to refer them to me, not to anybody else who operates in the space of referrals, right? And that's going to be based on if we have a relationship or not. Right. I mean, if we haven't talked in 17 years, you're probably not going to remember who I am, or even 7 years, or quite possibly in some cases, even 7 months. Right. And so that's the reality that people have to realize is that you control the desire that someone picks you to refer to over your competitors. What you don't control is the opportunity they're going to come across. So when someone's making the decision that they're going to refer to you, they don't really think about it until there's an opportunity. And when the opportunity presents itself, then desire will always win as to who gets that referred opportunity. And that's how you have to think about it. This is about building relationships. This is about staying top of mind, which is not the same thing as keeping in touch.
Right.
And this is about making sure people understand that you value like the support and the help that they give to your business, particularly for people who are already referring you. I see people leave so much opportunity on the table by not realizing that people who have referred you are more likely to refer you again before you worry about cultivating a brand new person. And people leave so much on the table because they're not thinking about, how do I just maintain the relationship with that person who has referred me in a way that just makes it about the fact that I'm thankful and grateful that they help take care of my business by referring clients to me, and not make it about anything else. Not make it about how smart I am, not make it about how many awards I've won, not make it about how many cases I've closed, or how many dollars, my clients have made in terms of revenue realized. Like, it's not about the external things you're going to show. It's about that person deciding, yeah, I trust Dawn. Yes, I trust Stacy. And when that opportunity presents itself, that's who I'm going to refer to.
All right. So your very first question in your mind that they'll never ask you is, do I like this person? Does that start from the networking opportunities? Does that start with the marketing? Are we finding, because you hear people say you're going to find your people, right?
Mm.
You're gonna find your people, and then you're gonna build, and I heard this during the pandemic era, and they were like, "You build your own economy," is what they were saying. You're gonna find your group of people, you're gonna build your own economy. That was a huge thing online for a while. I haven't heard it in a while, but it was a huge thing online for a while. Um, is that where that starts? Is this where, because this is, I mean, I heard it before because you and I have spoken a few years ago, but I don't know if the average business owner is thinking, "Oh, that very first connection is whether or not we can fit together, not whether or not I have the credentials or the expertise to do what it is I'm out here marketing."
Yeah. So here's the thing. I think it's a little crazy. And I think when I say this, some people are like, wait, is that right? And then you think about it and you're like, okay, think about anybody that you refer to now, right?
Mhm.
Anybody that you refer to now, obviously it's because you trust them on some level to do a good job. But that's not usually what makes you remember to actually refer them to someone. It's because they've stayed top of mind and they've maintained a relationship with you. Yes, there's a baseline that starts from, I believe this person does a good job, right? And you can lose that trust super fast as well. But when you've received that trust, right? Most people are like, they focus on the big thing about the science of referrals is this idea that there's this psychology of trust, and the person trusts me, and that's why they refer to me. And then we get convoluted with what we mean by trust. And people assume that that trust means it's because they know how good you are at what you do, right? They understand the problems that you solve intimately. They understand the case studies and the testimonials and all the things about what you do and all your service offerings. And people feel like no one can refer me until they understand everything about what I do and who I'm looking for. But what the science shows is that that psychology of trust is actually based more on the relationship that that person has with you. And then, yes, it is important that they know what you do, right? It is important that someone does not need to refer someone to me that is looking for a CPA, because I'll be like, why would you want me? I don't even do my own CPA and accounting work, right? I outsource that stuff. Like, I teach people about referrals. So it is important that that understanding, but and that likability factor is important in terms of the fact that there it's not like I gotta like we're buds and we're gonna go grab a coffee or we're gonna go grab a beer, right? Multiple times over the course of a year. It's not like that likability factor. But it's the idea that you're showing up in a way that is authentic and genuine and true, and that allows someone to, one, remember you, right? And two, build on the likability factor. And I think that's the piece that people overlook. Like when I teach my clients the what we do, right? So you know why we do it, right? And I teach you the what we do and the how we do it and the what we say while we're doing it. Like there is a process behind it. And it's all based on protecting the relationship we have with our referral source.
Okay. So these relationships, these are not, and to the third bucket, right? Like if you're an accountant and somebody has a tax issue, you might refer them to an EA that you know, right? An enrolled agent for the IRS kind of thing. But not all of these referrals are past clients who were happy with your work. So the relationships, they can start online. You never meet people in person. Like I have referred people that I've never actually met in person. I think it's important when we talk about networking, we talk about these things sort of to let the listener know this doesn't necessarily mean you have to go to, the next chapter meeting of,
Yes.
Dry Cleaners R Us or whatever the chapter meeting is to start to do these things. Can we talk a little bit about the science and sort of where it starts? So maybe we can have some awareness of what we are actually doing that we might be completely dismissing these potential referral sources without even knowing it because we're like, well, I didn't go to that thing. Um, Online's just as powerful, right?
Yes. I
That
mean, I have lots of clients that they'll never meet their referral sources in person. That's a little bit of my world, right? I always tell my clients who still have still do local networking and still can develop referral sources locally. I'm like, you have no idea how good you have it. Like, because there is something about being in person with someone that makes that solidifying, right? Of the I'll remember you and we now have a relationship move along faster because it's face to face. It's like I'm sitting across the table from you, right? But, I have clients in 14, 15. We just brought on Singapore. I got clients in 15 different countries around the world and how those people find me, right? I mean, I practice what I preach. A large majority of that's going to come through referrals. And so I'm never going to have a cup of coffee across the table from the people who refer to me. But maintaining those relationships, whether they're in person or they are virtual, it's the same thing. And I think in 2026, most people recognize that because there's as many networking opportunities online as there are in person and maybe more so in online nowadays. And I think that's something for folks to remember. Right? That's something for folks to remember is that it doesn't matter if you're trying to meet people to cultivate them into referral sources. So we're in that third bucket, right? The potential referral sources. These are people. Hopefully you can start with people you already know. That certainly shortcuts some of the work before you start going to strangers you don't know. But understanding like the idea behind, hey, it can still be done virtually. It doesn't have to be done in person. But understanding how you're going to develop those relationships, clearly they will look a little bit different because you're not grabbing a cup of coffee. You're doing it virtually, right? You're doing it online, but it's just as powerful.
yes. Fantastic, because I think it's important to the listener that I don't do local business or whatever. Will this work for me? So the last piece I really want to dive into is managing those expectations, right? So they're going to get your first $2, right? Everybody. But the idea is this is not and we call it overnight. Like you were like this overnight. I think I know which area of coaching has grown up, and those are women entering perimenopause and menopause. I've been seeing more of it too. I don't know if it's because they look at my social and they look at my face and go, "Yeah, she's definitely a grandma."
Yeah,
Uh,
they say the same thing to me. They're like, "Oh, she's going, she's headed. Here we go."
oh, and she's there. She's been on this app for how long? Oh, yeah, she's definitely right. But the idea is the expectation, developing these relationships, doing these things. This is not going to be as fast as throwing money at Google Ads or throwing money on Facebook ads, but the return on investment, if you will, is probably a lot higher than spray and pray is how I call it. Like I'm going to A/B test a couple of ads. I'm going to put X amount to each, and we'll just go. So I do want to make sure too in this conversation because we're getting back to wanting to be more human. AI generated customer service. There's tons of research coming out now about how much people hate not talking to humans at critical decision moments, which would be choosing a provider for something you need. So let's can we look at a little bit like what can you expect if you're doing this process correctly? What is that expectation looking like? And then for how long, right? So you stop the ad and the return probably stops, but this just keeps going.
Yeah. That's my favorite part about referrals, right? You are absolutely right. When you are cultivating people to start referring you, particularly if they've never done it, but even getting more referrals from people who've already referred you, or you're putting a plan in place to get referrals from your client as they're working with you through the client experience, it will always start a little bit slower, right? And some of my clients would laugh at that and they'll be like, oh, I don't know, I doubled my referrals in 90 days, but that's not the average, right? I mean, I do have clients with those kind of success stories, but the truth is, this will take a little bit longer. Right. It will because you have to be genuine about this, right? And that is I always tell folks if you're dead inside, you're not an ideal client for me because I have to know that you actually want to care about other people and take care of them. And so the idea here is that yes, it may take a little longer to get started, but to your other point, when the snowball starts to roll downhill, it's going to roll and it's just going to keep rolling as long as you keep implementing and as long as you keep investing in these relationships. And I like wash, rinse, repeat. kind of plans and models in my business and SOPs. So we build everything in that way. So it's like, hey, like I had an attorney on my podcast who learned everything from me. And the first couple of years we worked together, and I had her come back on the podcast. We're calling it a "Where Are They Now" series, and we are 11 years later. And every year she implements on what I taught her. Like, she modified things, dropped a few things, and kept the things that were giving her what she wanted, right? And 11 years later, we were talking about her success. And she's like, this is just how I run the firm. Like, this is just how we do things. Right. And I have lots of clients that are like that. It's like, it's understanding that this is a part of like anything else that you do. Yes, you may also still decide to run ads and like pull your hair out every time the algorithm changes or they change the targeting or the whatever. Right. But with referrals, it is once you get it in place, it may start a little slower, but when it starts to roll, it's going to roll downhill quite quickly, but you still have to maintain the execution of it. That will never go away. I don't care with what individual type program or strategy or anything you put into place, it will always take a piece of execution behind it.
Yeah, but the maintenance of that piece, I can imagine if you treat it like you did, very separate from the marketing and the prospecting, you would do the maintenance on that just like you would updating
Yes.
your Facebook profile or your LinkedIn bio or whatever those maintenance things are. I would just imagine that with the right perspective on this, you would maintain it just like you would the other ones.
Yes.
And it wouldn't have to feel like, oh, I have to maintain my referral pipeline. Because I'm sure if some people are going, that was too easy. These referrals, they're buying. These referrals, I'm taking care of them. These referrals, it actually is probably, and I think you gave me a percentage on the last one, I can't remember, but what is the percentage of close rate on a
Oh,
good referral? Because I think that would also blow the audience's mind a little bit about why you need to get into this science. So what
yes.
is the average close rate and then the stickiness and retention of the client?
Yeah, I mean, there's always been these couple statistics that are always out. It's 70% is typically that closing ratio, and like 80, I think it fluctuates. It's always in the 80s. I think right now it's at 86%. It's probably 89 if I had to guess. It may even reach the 90s. Of people prefer to make a buying decision based on somebody giving them advice on how they should make that decision. They want a recommendation, they want a referral, they want to make decisions. And the type of clients I work with, right? When somebody hires the clients I work with, it's no small amount of money. So they really want to get it right. Right. So when you're hiring that attorney to like help you incorporate your business or see you through a divorce, or you're hiring that business consultant to come in and help you work on an area in your business that isn't working, or you're hiring that architect, or you're hiring that CPA to help your business taxes and all the things, right? Like those are expert-based business owners. You wanna trust them for being the expert, right? And you need to trust the fact that this is the right decision in who you're hiring and who you're deciding to hire to work with, and that is always gonna wanna come through a referral, right? That is always gonna be that's why the closing ratio is around 70% and 86 to 89%, whatever it is right now, of folks prefer to make a buying decision, particularly a high stakes buying decision, right? One where like there's probably not a refund period because we're gonna be doing work for a really, really long time and we're like we're gonna be actually putting a lot of money into this. That is where somebody's like, I don't want to make a mistake. So the best way not to make a mistake is to have someone say, "Hey, this is the CPA I vouch for. This is the realtor I vouch for. This is the one I would put my reputation on the line." Right? If you're looking for a business consultant or a financial advisor, we're looking for that when we make those decisions.
That is absolutely fantastic. Mind-blowing stat. So if you are not currently treating referrals in your business the way that the system does, I would encourage you to read the books, listen to the other podcast too. We'll link it below. And then also, where can they find you and get more information and do business, um, with understanding more about referrals?
Yeah. So the 2 books are always a great place to start. I know you'll link to them. The first book is Generating Business Referrals Without Asking. The second book is the Referable Client Experience. I have my own podcast too. So if they're listening to yours, they want to throw another one on. It's Roadmap to Referrals. But I always tell folks the best place to connect. I have a website. It's my full name, stacybrownrandall.com. It's a great place to get started to learn more about it. But sometimes you just want to connect with the person. So just connect with me on LinkedIn or on Instagram. You find me always by my full name, Stacy Brown-Randall. Just connect and start paying attention to the conversations I'm having and what you see me posting and what you see us talking about. And read a book or two, or check out the podcast. You'll know pretty quickly. Yes, I fundamentally believe the same thing that Stacy does. And I want to generate referrals in a way that works for me. And then if that's the case, don't worry, there's always ways to learn how to work with me.
Fantastic. So we will put the books, we will put Roadmap to Referrals podcast, we will put everything down in the show notes. If you find us on the day we launch or you find 2 years later, we will make sure that you can always connect. This is such an important topic. And thank you so much for breaking that out so clearly so that people can really see kind of where referrals sit or should sit in the business. Because I want to say, in a lot of cases, because this is sort of how we've been taught to think about it, is it sits in that marketing most of the time, or
Mhm.
it sits in a place that we think it's, oh no, it's a communication, right? So we're communicating with people for referrals, but the science is a little different. So I appreciate you so much for being willing to come back on. It's so great to
Thank
talk
you.
with you, and congratulations on your second book. That's
Thank
really
you so
cool.
much. I appreciate your time as well.
All right. We'll talk to you all next time on the next episode of the Business Mastery Podcast. Take care. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Business Mastery Podcast. If you want to learn more about me, you can go to dawnkennedy.com, and you can now check us out on YouTube, as well as, of course, any of your favorite platforms that host podcasts. Take care.